You stare at Taro in hesitation, replaying the word over and over again in your mind. Escape, escape, escape. You had wanted to escape just now, but the timing seemed way too perfect for it to be coincidental. You point to your forehead, tilting your head to the side. You put that dream in my head? You ask, your hands fumbling in front of you as you struggle to get the words out. He nods, making a series of quick signs, but his hands are badly injured, and you can tell it's a struggle to even move his fingers. Vision, danger, need to go now. You breathe out, brushing your hair out of your face with one hand. You needed to get out of this base, that much was true, but you didn't have any idea how. Could you get out through the hangar? Did they even know how to pilot a ship? You sure couldn't. The leader can see you stalling, thinking it over, and quickly steps forward. Only take one. Only take one, you repeat, confused. One what? One person? Taro points to you, and you tilt your head to the side, not understanding. Taro points to you again, forcefully, and then it dawns on you. The others? You hold up 3 fingers. They're still alive? They're still on this base? Taro nods and points to you again. No. You shake your head back and forth quickly. If your friends were still on this base, then you weren't going anywhere. But why did Kylo not tell you that? Was there more he was keeping from you? Or were there certain things that Kylo himself didn't know? Taro grabs your arm, but you pull away from him. No, take them, you sign desperately. You move your hand into a fist and shake it in front of you, imitating Sadie's name sign. Save her. Take her home. Can't, leader responds. Don't know where, Taro adds, pointing to your forehead. Suddenly it all comes together. Yes, Taro had put the wall on your head, but apparently that meant he could do other things too, like place visions in your head and track you to your thoughts. Obviously, Taro had been a lot more powerful than he had originally let on. I'm staying, you sign firmly, thrusting your hand down in front of you, your pinky and thumb extended. K.R., Taro signs, shaking his head from side to side to show his disapproval. My friends, you insist. You tap your wrist with one finger and shake your head. There isn't time. The leader turns to you. Sadie, we'll try. You nod your head appreciatively as he tugs on Taro's arm. Taro, however, looks hesitant to leave you. You just force a smile in his direction, holding up your fingers in a loose knot. Friend. Taro nods at you and crosses his fingers together. Best friend. He puts his hand on your head for a final time, and you nod at him as he turns to go out the door. He looks back at you quickly and spells something with one hand. Hide. You nod as the door closes behind you as you dash back into the bedroom, running around to the far side of the bed and throwing yourself down on the floor. You can hear shouting and blaster fire in the distance, followed by footfalls that get closer and closer to your door. You quickly scoot yourself under his bed as you hear someone come inside, and you make yourself as small as possible, forcing your breathing to remain calm as you push your breaths in and out through your nostrils. You hear the sound of multiple pairs of boots walking around your kitchen before they come into the bedroom. From your spot under the bed, a pair of white boots appears in your field of vision, and your heart pounds in your chest. Don't look down, don't look down, don't look down, don't look down. Don't see the girl, one of them says. No, I think she ran off with them, another says. One of them laughs, but it's a dry, bitter sound. Who's going to tell Kylo Ren that she escaped? Not me, the other voice replies. Didn't you see what he did to Hux? It's all you can do to stifle a snort. Of course Kylo is going to get his revenge on Hux for hurting you. It wouldn't be like him if he didn't. Kylo may have still seen you as his property, at least partially, and so any attack against you was seen as a personal assault. I don't want to tell him, the other says. Flip a coin? Dude, I'm not losing my life over a coin toss. So what then, we tell him together? Let's just wait it out. He walks out of the room and you let yourself exhale a deep sigh of relief. There's no way they're going to escape the base. They'll be shot dead before they even get to the hangar. But didn't Ren say that he wanted the girl captured alive? And Hux said stop them at all costs, the voice replies. Who are you more afraid of? Do you really want me to answer that? Their voices drop off as they leave and you allow yourself to relax. Well, Kylo wanted you alive. Of course he wanted you alive. He probably wanted to kill you himself for trying to escape. He would take it personally, you knew that, and there was no way he wouldn't. The real question was, how was he going to react when he realized you were still here? You roll yourself out from under the bed and lie on the floor, staying relatively hidden, and try to think it over. Okay, Tara and the leader were trying to escape, and from the sounds of things, they probably wouldn't have time to go for Sadie or anyone else. You remembered Taro telling you once, a long time ago, that he could fly some kind of ship, but the whole conversation had been brought up in passing, and you hadn't really paid attention at the time. And sure, maybe he had flown one vessel, but could he fly whatever they managed to find in the hangar? You feel a sinking feeling in your chest as you let the real reason you didn't go with them sink in. They weren't going to make it. You had no idea why they were even still alive, but the First Order obviously wanted them for something. But now that they had tried to escape, they were dangerous, a threat. Would they risk locking them up again? No, Huck said to stop them at all costs. They were going to die here either way. You shake your head. No, they were strong. You had to have some faith in Taro. If they could get to a ship, they could get away. It wasn't that improbable. Sure, they were big and green and easy to spot at a distance, but they had blasters of their own. They could fight back. They probably had their own telepathic powers to help them get away that you didn't even know about. They would be fine, you decide. Either way, you can't force yourself to dwell on it. You have bigger problems to worry about. Your friends were still on this base, somehow, somewhere. But why? For what purpose? Were they locked in cells like you had been? Had they also been brought before Taro to interpret? Is that how he knew they were still alive? You can't be sure of anything, and honestly, you're a little frustrated with yourself for not thinking of it sooner. True, you hadn't exactly been allowed out of this room to explore, but you sure would have tried a lot harder if you had known your friends were still here. You feel a stinging sensation in your chest, and suddenly you're mad at Kylo all over again. Why hadn't he told you? Did he not know? How could he not know, unless Hux was keeping more from him than he had let on? You think it over. While Hux had kept you locked up, Ren had been away on some week-long mission that he of course told you nothing about. At first you had thought that Kylo was in charge of the Starkiller Base just as much as Hux was, but you were starting to get the feeling that that wasn't entirely true. Hux commanded everyone on base and dictated what happened inside of it, but Kylo, what did he do? Storm around the base and throw tantrums? With his force powers, he was definitely more powerful than Hux. You knew that. So what, did he just loom around with Hux until an assignment came up that required his specialized skills? Too many questions, and again, no answers. You were going to have to start making a list of all the things you didn't know, but then again, it would only frustrate you to see how many questions you had that he would never give you the answers to. Maybe he would with time, but you needed to sort out your priorities. Your relationship, or whatever this with Kylo Ren was, had suddenly taken a dramatic shift over to the back burner. He couldn't get in your head, at least not right now, and you could use this to your advantage. It should probably concern you how up and down your feelings towards him were, but your feelings weren't a concern right now, nor could they ever be. This was about survival. You would never be a relationship of equals, not truly, not while you were still his prisoner here. And even if you finally got permission to move about the base, you would still technically be a prisoner. If you had told him you wanted to leave, told him you wanted to take your friends and go back to your home planet, would he let you go? No, you couldn't imagine he would. If he did, it would be a selfless act, an act of love, and you couldn't see him doing that. He didn't have it in him. He liked you, and he cared about you, but only so much as he wanted to possess you, to have you for his own, and while you liked being possessed and consumed by him, you still had to acknowledge how fucked up the whole thing was. You shake your head. Okay, focus. You needed to focus and get your shit together before he came back. You needed to develop a plan to know how to spin this. Sadie, Ladson, Shane. You had to assume that with the stormtroopers on their tail, that Taro and the leader didn't have time to rescue any of them, which meant that you had to. But where were they? What would they be used for? Either they were still locked away in the cells, or they were being used somewhere on base. But where would they be? Were they being used as slave labor? Shane was a good cook. Was it possible he was in the kitchen? Latson could fight. Would they train him as a stormtrooper? You remember when you had joked about the First Order drafting him. That suddenly became a lot less funny. And Sadie? Sadie was a girl. They wouldn't have her fight. They wouldn't have her doing hard labor. No, she was a young, beautiful girl, which only meant that... You make a noise in the back of your throat like you were about to vomit. Sadie was being used in the same way you were being used, although at least you and Kylo had come to some sort of an understanding about it. After all, you had been intimate with him even before you had been captured, and what's more, you wanted him, so you preferred not to think of your situation that way if you could help it. But Sadie? Sadie was probably being tortured and defiled. It made you sick to think about, and yet you had to think about it if you were going to help her. The real question was, and you hated to think of it this way, but was she communal property, or was she the victim of just one person? A name immediately leaps into your mind and you push it away because it's too terrible, too disgusting to think about, and it makes tears spring to your eyes as you can only imagine the way she was being tortured. And if what you suspected was true, it would also make sense why Kylo didn't know she was still here. But that, of course, meant that you definitely were going to have to do something to help her escape, but you needed Kylo Ren to do it, and if he wouldn't help you willingly, then you were just going to have to manipulate him into helping. There was no other way to go about it. You lie on the floor for hours, not daring to move, only occasionally getting up for cups of water to hold you over. You're hungry again, no surprise there, but considering the fact that they thought you had escaped, no one was coming to bring you food. You think it over. Yes, Taro had told you to hide, and you followed it without question, but why? What did you need to hide from, exactly, unless hiding served as a distraction? If the First Order realized that you weren't with Taro, then they might split up their resources searching for you. And if there were people looking for you, then there were less people trying to hunt down Taro. You had no idea if that was his idea, but it was a pretty smart move if it was, sending half of the First Order's resources on a wild goose chase when you were safely in Kylo's room the whole time. Either way, you still didn't dare get up and move about the apartment, and you had just started to fall asleep on the floor when you heard angry footsteps entering the room. It was Kylo. You weren't quite sure how you knew, if you had somehow learned to differentiate his footfalls from everyone else's, or if it was the Force or your connection at work, but you knew it was him. You heard him storming through the apartment, momentarily pausing in the kitchen before looming in the doorway to the bedroom. You stayed on the floor, your breath caught in your chest. Should you get up? Should you not? Suddenly you were afraid. Very, very afraid. You hear him yell underneath the mask as he storms back into that secret little room of his in the living room, and you hear his screams through the helmet. He doesn't just sound angry, he sounds like he's almost in pain, and you silently hope that Taro hasn't shot him with a blaster or something. Was his armor strong enough to deflect blaster hits? You doubted it. Silently, you get to your feet and make your way into the living room, being as quiet as possible. You have no idea how Kylo is going to react when he sees you, but you can't hide forever. You stand near the entrance to the living room, waiting for him to calm down, when he suddenly appears in the doorway, still seething, his shoulders heaving in rage. The lightsaber is still in his hands, and as soon as he lays eyes on you, it's as if everything stops, at least for a brief moment. He comes at you suddenly, his stride set with purpose. You know, at least you think you know, what's about to happen. You take a step backwards and fall to the ground as his lightsaber starts to hum, glowing red and angry in front of you. You close your eyes, raising your hands up in front of you to shield yourself, just like in the dream you had last night. Suddenly, time moves ridiculously slowly, and you have time to think. You had confronted Taro about your dream. You had asked him if he put that dream in your head last night, and he had responded in the affirmative, but he had used the word vision. Did he know this was going to happen? Did he have some kind of foresight that showed that Kylo Ren was about to kill you? Had he passed the message along to you in the hopes that it would save your life? Is that why he had taken the time to try to help you escape with them? Too late now, you think bitterly, as you wait for the blast of pain that would end your life. But it doesn't come. Instead, Kylo falls to his knees in front of you, pulling you into his chest. You freeze for a moment, not quite sure how to respond. Instead, you just let him hold you, your arms pinned uncomfortably to your sides. He pulls away from you just as quickly, placing each large hand on the side of your head as he gets a good look at you, studying your face. Nervously, you do something you've never done before as you reach up and touch his helmet, running your fingers against the cool metal grooves. You can't see his expression through the slit in his mask, but for once, you're not sure you want to. He unlatches the mechanism at the base of the helmet and pulls it off, his dark hair falling in front of his face. He brushes it aside as he looks at you, really looks at you, and although you meet his eyes for a second, you have to look away. His dark eyes are filled with emotion like you've never seen them before, and he looks downright afraid. Kylo Ren wasn't just upset, he was distraught, and you suddenly felt a pang of guilt in your chest for making him worry about you. Suddenly, everything that you thought about in the past few hours just got way more complicated and 10 times more confusing. You had thought that you would have to be performing at your best in order to manipulate him into helping you save Sadie and the others, but right now, on his knees in front of you, it looked like he would do just about anything for you. "Hi," you say softly in a desperate attempt to break the silence. You'd never seen Kylo like this before. You'd seen him nervous and unsure of himself, angry and vengeful, cocky and arrogant, but you had never seen this look before. He grabs you on either side of your face and presses his lips to yours. You kiss him back, momentarily allowing yourself to lose yourself in the familiar sensation. When he finally pulls away, you almost feel dizzy from the emotions flowing between you. Silently, you're almost thankful that Taro put the wall in place to dampen your connection, otherwise you would have been completely overwhelmed. "I thought you were dead," he says, his voice low and quiet. He glances down at your lips before his eyes flick upwards, holding your gaze. "But you stayed." His forehead creases, almost like he doesn't understand, as he runs his gloved fingertips down your cheek. "You stayed for me." "You stayed for your friends, but right now there's no way he can know that." Not trusting your voice, you just bite your lip and nod your head in a quick series of ups and downs, trying to make the gesture look as authentic as possible. A look passes over his face, and it looks like relief. Suddenly, you make the connection. "Wait," you say softly, "if you thought I was dead..." He looks away from you, and you can feel your breath hitch in your throat. "No," you whimper softly. You close your eyes, and right in front of you, you can see Taro as he was leaving. Best friend. Should you have tried to convince him to stay? Should you have tried to protect him somehow? Was there something more you could have done? You had never truly cried in front of Kylo Ren before. "No, no, no!" You beat against his chest with your fists, but his armor seems to swallow the force of impact, and he doesn't even flinch. Somehow, it makes the whole thing worse. "No, no, no." You press your forehead into his shoulder, and he wraps his arms around you in a comforting gesture. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't say anything. He just sits there and holds you while you weep into his arms. For some reason, this was worse than losing B. B had asked you to go on this mission. B had planned to use you as bait, planned to set you up as a distraction. You had known him for years before he decided to betray you. But Taro didn't know you. He knew that you would know nothing of the plan, but he had been open with you. He had at least set up the wall in your head. He had protected you, and you knew that he cared about you. Even despite all the nastiness with the First Order, he had been your friend. He had even hindered his escape by coming to try to save you first. "Tell me how," you managed through your choked sobs. "Tell me how." He hesitates for a moment, as if he's not quite sure he should. "They made it out of the hangar," he says at length. You grit your teeth, sensing something in his voice. "You're doing?" He lets the corner of his lip pull upwards in a sad smile. "I thought you were with them." You take a moment to process this. You can imagine the ship trying to take off, being pelted by blaster fire. You could imagine Kylo walking in and using the Force to knock everyone back, allowing the ship to finally take off. Hux went after them. You mull this over in your head. Even if they were able to fly the ship, they probably wouldn't have been much good at aerial combat. "So they were shot down?" you ask softly, allowing your voice to get hopeful for absolutely no reason. "So they crash-landed on some planet? So they may still..." You're silenced with one stern look from Kylo. You look down and close your eyes. No, they didn't crash. They were blasted out of the sky. There is nothing left of them. You collapse miserably back into Kylo's shoulder, and he starts to stand, trying to pick you up with him. "No," you say, beating at his chest, pushing him back. "No, no!" You stumble as you get to your feet, but Kylo stays down on one knee, watching you cautiously. "No," you say again, and you pace back and forth in quick strides, trying to think. I'm not going to let Hux get away with this. I can't. It's done, Kylo says firmly, getting to his feet. You suddenly realize just how much taller he is than you. Hux killed him, you snarl, with more venom in your voice than you had ever heard before. Hux killed him. Hux locked me away. He tried to turn me against you. I'm going to make him pay for this. Stop this, he says, grabbing your upper arms with both hands. He shakes you roughly, trying to shake some sense into you. What good will come of getting revenge on Hux? What good will it do? Do you really think that you alone could kill him? I didn't say kill him, you snap, twisting out of his grasp. You turn your back to him, trying to think. Do you trust me? You ask, looking at him over your shoulder. He doesn't answer. He just stares you down, trying to figure out what you're thinking. Or maybe he's just trying to figure out if you've completely snapped. Don't you want revenge? You ask, trying a different tactic. For what he did to me? I know what you did to him, but... How do you know about that? Kylo snaps, taking a few steps towards you. Maybe I'm more powerful than you realize, you snap back, immediately regretting it. With the wall in your head, he may not have been able to read your thoughts or check the full extent of your force powers, but he knew you. He knew you were untrained. It was a stupid bluff, and he wastes no time calling you on it. Delusional, he corrects you. He lowers his gaze to yours, searching your face. What aren't you telling me? He puts the palm of his hand flat against your temple, and you suck a deep breath in, trying to figure out if it's even worth it to try and fight. Tell me, or I push. He has Sadie, you say immediately. He pulls his hand away from your face and stares at you, searching your face. You're sure? He asks softly. I'm sure, you say, because now you are. If Kylo was willing to entertain the idea, then that meant that he knew that it was at least possible. All of my friends are still here, Kylo. He's staring at you like he's trying to make up his mind about something. They shouldn't stay here, you tell him, trying to plead your case. They had nothing to do with this. They're my friends. I have a responsibility to help them. You're not responsible for whatever happens to them, he says, his voice quiet but firm. You weren't the one who brought them here. But if I can do something... What can you do? Kylo asks. His eyes are flashing. You're a prisoner here, just as they are. You bite your lip and look away. You didn't stay for Kylo. You stayed to try to help your friends. You'd wanted to try to keep that hidden from him, but you couldn't. He knew you too well, and the truth was written all over your face. The only difference is I want to be here, you say softly, glancing back up at him. The change in his features is immediate, and you're silently pleased that you can have such an effect on him. At least a very small part of you honestly believed that to be true. I don't know about the rest of your friends, he says after a moment, but the girl? Sadie, you remind him. He sighs and rubs at his face with both hands. You smile at him gleefully, bouncing on the toes of your boots. You'll do it? You'll really help me rescue Sadie? His eyes lock onto your face and you hold your breath. Under one condition. He let out a long, slow exhale, waiting to hear it, although in the back of your mind you already know what's coming. You must promise that you will never try to escape. I can guarantee it won't end well for you if you do. You smile at him, pushing all of the innocence and assurance into your face that you can muster. I promise. He shakes his head like this is something he's going to regret doing. And I suppose you know where she's being held? You don't actually know where she's being kept, but you nod anyway, letting a false sense of confidence mask your features. We need to get into Hux's room.